ultimate, return to simple is just to become who we truly are, who we were truly created to be. It's really an invitation to just step out of the chaos and confusion so many are experiencing and ready to step away from. I had, deeper healing happen from eating simple food, living simpler. Like I started having this emotional and spiritual healing. There's something physiological, biological that happens from eating our proper food.
Welcome, Kim. I've got Kim. Do you say VanDolah? How do you say that?
VanDolah.
VanDolah. That's what I thought. Okay, great. Well, welcome. So you've written a book. Tell me about the book.
I have, yes. I wrote the book, Return to Simple, A Journey of Hope and Truth.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I could go back just a little bit and how I came to writing it.
Right, exactly. Tell us what inspired you to write that book.
Absolutely. Yeah. So over the years, I've been on a faith-led journey of just trying to find the best way to eat, live, and came across the carnivore diet about 4 years ago with a fasting influencer, Dr. Mindy Pelz. Mm-hmm. She was doing these fast training weeks, and I did one of those that was for 5 days. We were going to eat a carnivore diet. And I'm also a mom of 6 who homeschools. And when I did that, I found there was a big shift in my energy. There was a big shift in my brain clarity, and it was a game changer for me. And so I went into diving deep into what is this about? And so listening to Dr. Ken Berry and Dr. Chafee, and my husband had seen you on Joe Rogan, and he told me about you, and I began listening to your success stories. And I found this kind of desire within me to coach. I had, started bringing my family into this lifestyle. And so, I ended up going through a coaching program and starting to build this online business, and wasn't going real great. And decided to just kind of take a step back and pray. And I found this woman who is also a homeschooler who was looking for some help. And she is a physical therapist for the Amish community that is north of me. And so she had a great health reset with me and started sharing her experience with her Amish clients. And I ended up getting phone calls then from some Amish people. And so as you're starting to help somebody to change their lifestyle, a lot of times I was sending, people videos for people like you or Dr. Berry to help with the education piece of it. And so with the Amish, I was like, okay, there are some books out there. I know you have a book, that kind of thing. And so I was sharing those things. But I really felt like, okay, after that first phone call with this beautiful Amish woman, I thought, I really need a resource to be able to put this in really, just terms that they can understand. And that's really where the inspiration of the book came from. Long story, I guess, to that point. But so it's become more than that, though. It's really a resource that's very common sense oriented, ancestral, wisdom. And also my Christian faith is just woven into this book through stories of helping these Amish people and other, clients that I've helped. Return to simple is what I call it. It's really returning to just simple food, simple living. And then, with that comes this kind of simple presence, a closer relationship with God.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Amish, and most people would say they have a very simple way of living. I was in Tennessee a few weeks ago, and they had a Miller's Bio Farm, which is an Amish-run, raw food. Raw milk. I assume regenerative, agriculture style farm there. And so, I guess when we say return to simple, just to put it in practical terms, because there's a lot of people say would be simplicity, but what does that mean to you? And what does that mean in the book, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of an overview. The ultimate, return to simple is just to become who we truly are, who we were truly created to be. And for my journey and how I share it, intertwining my journey and then helping others, is I found simple food, the carnivore diet, an animal-based way of living, to really bring that out of me, to really bring me. So if you think of the connection piece, when we eat our proper human diet, we become connected to ourselves more. So our intuition is, heightened. And so through the first part of the book, I really go into how did we get away from this? How did we become so separated from who we truly are as humans? And so, yeah, I go into, even back to homesteading and how we've just, gone into industrial farming, how each thing has impacted another. Our big medical has come in to, save the day. So, yeah, but I find when people return to simple food in my own journey, I'm like, what else is out there? I found this ancestral food to be so life changing for me. I also found, being outside more grounded to the earth, taking on a more playful spirit, not being so serious about life. Yeah, I found those things to be very instrumental in my journey. And so that is why I wrote the book. And like you said, the Amish, yes, living this simple lifestyle, we look at it that way. But there are some things that have come in. There's some, the sad foods have also come into their communities. You think, yeah, Amish people are baking and, they've got the sugar and the flour, but actually the community, at least I can speak of as the one that I'm connected with, has these discount stores where you can buy all the, stuff from Walmarts and the big, box stores at very discounted prices, like cents for a box of cereal. And the Amish people are shopping in these, stores and they own them. And yeah, their health is being impacted just like ours. So, and they are, more interested in, natural approach to healing, natural approach. So that's why, the book and the food piece, especially, they aren't really like in tune with the carnivore diet and the animal-based, approach. So what I found working with them is amazing. Just like you experience when you're, helping people, the gut issues just, they go away and the inflammation gets just cut out and the brain clarity, it's all, they're having the same experience, the few people that I've worked with there.
The it's interesting because obviously we talk about how sort of our modern food environment, our modern environment in general, the electronics, the constant infusion of electrons hitting our body in various ways, and petrochemicals that we're exposed to on a daily, and then some of the plastics we're exposed to, the synthetic materials and chemicals and fragrances. It's nonstop, and not to mention the air pollution that's in so many of the cities and suburbs, in some degree even in the rural areas. So with all that, I mean, and some people say the trade-off is that because of that, it now allows us to live in comfort, in air conditioning, in heat in the winter, because I'd rather not freeze to death in the winter. I mean, that's a fair statement. I guess you could live in a house with a wood burning stove and then breathe in all the fumes from that, which might arguably be worse. Where do you sort of draw the line in what is, allowing us a higher standard and quality of living? Because if we look at life expectancy, up until a few hundred years ago, the general life expectancy was quite low, and a lot of that's due to infant mortality rates. A lot of babies just didn't survive. A lot of women would die in childbirth. I mean, that was pretty clear. Where does a simple, I guess, it's like, do I go out and live in the woods and sleep on the floor, or what are your thoughts on that stuff?
Yeah, no, that's such a great question. And many, we kind of have this homesteading movement happening too within our country. So, yeah, a lot of people get very inspired. I want to go all the way and, go live in the woods and hunt down my game. And yeah, I mean, that's not a great way to look at this. How I approach it is, incrementally, find the thing that you really feel drawn to with simplicity and give it a try. See if it enhances your life. I wrote about this in the book too, but we had an experience at our house where our septic system in the middle of winter, pretty much went out, and we were really having to conserve water. And it was just a lot of things we were doing. And I'm like, oh, we're stepping into a more ancestral way of living and embracing that. And, after months of doing that, I was like, okay, I'm ready back to have the convenience. So I think that we can take the wisdom of the past and apply that to our lives, just like we're doing with the carnivore diet, right? And we can do that in any aspect of our life. And take the wisdom of today, because there is wisdom right here and right now. And we can use that. And stepping into you think about the phones, and, a lot of people have a hard time, just like with the food, trying to balance that. So it's just definitely a challenge we're faced with, is this balancing act of technology and what's truly good for us. And so I think we're constantly challenged and need to face that we need to detach from these things sometimes. And so maybe that means a camping trip, once a year, or trying to get out in your yard every single day and take a walk around barefoot. Trying to get to a park and just have a forest walk. All these things we can do to center ourselves more and detach.
If we look into the future, what appears to become, we have self-driving cars. That's clearly going to happen. There is some evidence that we're all going to be having robots that are going to be doing our dishes and folding our laundry and, whatever they can figure they can do, probably a lot of things. And so we will be, many people will want to go more and more towards this convenience aspect, and farther removed from even physical being at all. Do you see a problem with that, or how do we maintain some level of humanity amidst all the, almost a transhumanistic approach to society, where we will be sharing space, societal space, not with animals, but with created, basically robots? I mean, do you see that coming down the road?
I'm a little more protected in my homeschool space and homesteading space, where I'm really, kind of going against that, I guess, a bit, because I find the more I tap into that, the more I'm more unsettled. I don't have as much peace. So maybe that's part of my book and the communication that it can have for people too, is you don't have to go that route. I've challenged the norm for many years now by, we've chosen to homeschool our kids, and we've chosen to step out of the busyness that we're really led into. Look at the Amish, for example. If you go into these communities, you have an experience when you go. It's like stepping back in the past a little bit. But they're so friendly. They look you in the eyes, and you just leave with this heightened sense of being a human. I feel connected. And so I think we have to challenge that, because we're meant for connection with each other, with the earth, and with God, ultimately. Yeah.
And obviously there's a spiritual component to this. And, if we look at any historical religious text, there's no Twinkies in there. There's no Beyond Meat burgers. None of that exists. When we talk about how long humans have been on Earth, people will debate that, but certainly we have a pretty good historical count, and nowhere in any sort of religious or historical text are these references to these modern, I don't even want to call them foods, they're chemical concoctions. And, you see that. And if you just mirror what our, I guess, ancestors would have eaten even hundreds of years ago, likely we'd have better outcomes across the board with our health. What do you, you said you mentioned and you've done a carnivore diet. I don't know if you still do that or mostly do that. What has been your experience which changed your, did you ever consume the industrial diet, or have you always been pretty, I guess, healthy, I suppose? Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. Hey, if you or someone you love is suffering from chronic disease and you're tired of just managing symptoms with potions, pills, and procedures, I want you to check out Revero.com. Our team of dedicated professionals is committed to tackling the root cause of your issue and finally getting you healthy. Hurry up, though. Our spaces are filling up very quickly.
Yeah. Maybe just, I guess, if you're comparing to, the culture at large, probably a little better. But I've had moments, we have a big family, like you have a newborn around and it's like pizza and there's, the chicken nuggets have snuck in, those kind of things. So yes, I've definitely had those and, eating out at the fast food. So what I found was, well, we found keto back in like 2016 or so. So this has been, a journey. And so it's kind of been a yo-yo journey up and down a bit up until about the past 4 years or so when I came across the carnivore diet and really applied that to my life. And I, you asked me kind of what, I do mostly eat animal based. What I approach in the book is, and with people I work with is, man, and I just want to say this too. Wouldn't it be amazing if everybody could just do carnivore for like 30 to 90 days? Like our things would be so much different because this beautiful self-awareness happens. And that's what happened to me too, where you can then introduce something that you had before, whether it's a sad food or piece of bread, whatever it is. And you have this self-awareness now, like, okay, that's how it makes me feel. So that is the approach that I share in the book. Because people don't really want to be told what to eat. It's kind of a sensitive subject for everyone, as I'm sure you get. Like there's a lot of backlash on that. So I've just used a very gentle approach and just built up why we should be eating more animal based, just common sense, really. And here you go. What if you try it for 30 days and then you could introduce these things? That's kind of the approach I've used and shared in the book. And I found it to be very beneficial because it puts that person into the stewardship role of their life.
Now, it sounds, correct me if I'm wrong, are you now a homesteader or have you been a homesteader? Is that something you do?
Yeah. Right now we're just kind of gently doing that too. Not like, okay, we're homesteading, just the property that we have at several acres. So we've had chickens for several years. And then just this year we brought on 2 pigs.
And do you find, I've seen some people point out that homesteading is actually discouraged in some ways. I mean, they sort of make it more difficult than it needs to be. Is that something you've seen? Maybe it depends on what region of the country you're living in, but is that a fair or not a fair statement?
I haven't experienced that. We are in rural Iowa here, so haven't had any concerns with that.
Well, Iowa is certainly an agricultural state. I mean, it's basically the Corn Belt. I mean, I think they produce more corn per capita than any other state, and maybe one of the biggest corn producers in the U.S. But so maybe that's a difference. But I know I've seen people where like they would give them a hard time depending on how they would access electricity and water, and it may be just isolated cases. Who knows? So what do you miss and what do you enjoy as a homesteader?
I have to say that, for us homeschooling and having our kids at home, just I can see only benefit from it, honestly, because it's brought chores into our life. It's drawn us outside more. It's connecting us to our food. So that is the big, drive behind doing it is my husband and I saw that like we're going in the wrong direction in many ways when COVID hit and that kind of thing. So we saw like, this is important that we teach our kids some of these ancestral skills, how to butcher an animal and how to, process these. So that's what we've decided to do. And that's where homesteading, yes, it's hard work. Yes, it's time consuming, but we've really detached from other ways of being busy and stay home more. Yeah,
you're more likely to survive the zombie apocalypse than the average apartment city dweller, perhaps, I would say. Seems like. What skills have you acquired over the last period of time which you never thought you would ever do? I mean, obviously butchering an animal is probably something that most people have never experienced, quite honestly. What things have you like had to figure out that were like, okay, I didn't expect to have to learn how to do this?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably the biggest one is right. Killing an animal or watching it being, that is like, that goes really against what I've ever experienced in my life with, just, yeah, as I was raised, and I just wasn't exposed to that. I had grandparents even that farmed, but um, yeah, I have to say that would be the biggest piece, is just going through it, I guess, and just looking and watching and just praying over that life that is sacrificed in order for you to live. Like, that is a strong connection that we're missing in our food supply. I think it's a big piece too of people being connected overall.
Do you like when it comes to food acquisition and prepare? I mean, are you like making your own butter? Or I mean, what kind of things are you? What? How do you prepare your? Where does your food come from? How do you prepare it?
Yeah, yeah, no, great question. So we are able to get our beef sourced from a farmer that lives close to us. So we get a lot with a big family. We just eat a lot of ground beef. So our freezer is full of that. And then, yeah, on our homestead, like right now, we have 30 chickens in, this chicken tractor that is going across the yard. And we'll butcher them in, 4 weeks or so, and they'll be in our freezer. Um, and then, yeah, the pigs will be butchered here in September, and we'll have those in our freezer. But yeah, that isn't necessarily enough to sustain our family. At home, we have 7. So I'll get my food at Walmart, Aldi's, mainly it's meat based.
How many acres are you on again?
Yeah. So we are in about 8.
8 acres. So it's unreasonable to have a herd of cows on that size property. You probably could have one or two, I would imagine, depending on how clear it is. And a couple pigs running around. You said you homeschool. So how many kiddos do you guys have?
Yeah. So I have 6. So one is
Oh,
already out of the house. He's 23. Yeah. He's excited I was coming on with you. He's a weightlifter and
okay.
very meat based guy, too. He does eat some carbs, but
What's
yeah.
his name?
His name's Noah. Hi, Noah.
No. Well, Noah, good luck to you, man. Good to hear it. Keep up the good work. So all the kids, I mean, was there a transition for the kids too? Were they in a public school or regular school and in a city and now they're out in the country? How did they take it, if that's what happened?
Yeah, no, actually, we've been on the same property, which has been great for ever since we started having kids. So, when we transitioned, so I came across the carnivore diet, and I'm like, oh, I feel so good. Like, I would love for my kids and everybody to experience this. So we did, do some challenges, like I did a 5-day challenge, and we just gradually, sometimes not so gradually, would take things in and out. And yeah, just really, again, trying to give my kids this self-science approach to their health and stewarding their health and why we're doing the things we're doing. So I did a lot of education as a homeschooling mom in that space too, listening to books aloud with them. We even read Weston A. Price's book aloud, and just giving them some background as to why we're doing the things we're doing.
Yeah, and that's quite an interesting sort of concept of doing a family challenge. Like you've got, husband, wife, 6 kids, or how many kids are in the house. You say, hey, this week we're going to do this. Because we have these, with social media, a lot of people have their challenges and they have little communities and groups, but there's no greater community or group than family, really. I mean, you think about it. If you can get your whole family on board and they can learn something from this, and I think it's wonderful to sort of challenge the kids to think differently, because if you don't, they just kind of gravitate toward the mean, and the average is not of a good place to be, quite honestly. I mean, there's a lot of disease and illness and suffering and anxiety and all that other stuff that goes with that. So once again, the book was it called Return to Simple? I think you said. What was the name of the
Pop
book
it up
again?
here again if you can see it good there. Return to Simple: A Journey of Hope and Truth. It's on Amazon.
And what's going to be in the book if somebody wanted to read it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's really an invitation to just step out of the chaos and confusion so many are experiencing and ready to step away from. And it's a gentle guide using ancestral wisdom, Christian faith, and common sense, to just step away and step into what is real, natural, and good. And really, that first part of the book is where I address that chaos and confusion, why we've gotten here, and this is what worked for me, and this is what's working for people. It's just sharing story, and it's woven throughout. and it's very animal-based approach. And then part 2 of the book, I go into, the other living principles of fasting and, grounding and connecting with the earth, being playful and, just really connecting to, how we were made. And then the last part of the book is really spiritual, where what I found is I had, deeper healing happen from eating simple food, living simpler. Like I started having this emotional and spiritual healing come from that. And so that's what the third part of the book is.
Yeah. And, just in your sort of, I guess, opinion or your learning, what do you think is consistent with eating in a spiritual way? What does the religious text tell us is a way to eat? Is that, I mean, because I know every religion, Islam bans pork, Judaism, the same thing. There's, people that are Hindu that will refrain from eating beef. What do you feel like from a Christian's perspective, what is the right diet? Is there because some people will point to some passages in the Bible and say, hey, God said the seeds and the fruits and plants, or we should eat that. And some of the vegetarians that have adopted that, like the Seventh-day Adventists in particular, believe that it's all about eating plants. Whereas, if you read the Bible, and I've read it cover to cover many years ago, but there's a lot of slaughter. There's a lot of animal slaughter in there, a lot of fatted calves and sacrifices and feasts and things like that. So what does your thoughts say on that?
Yeah, such a good question. Like you said, like you can find any piece of, scripture in the Bible to kind of form your mold of what you want, right? As a carnivore or as a vegetarian. So I don't take that approach at all. So I just, the Bible teaches detachment. And I don't believe that there's any better way to detach from my experience than the carnivore diet. Like, it's the ultimate way to detach.
Detach from what? The food system, or what do you mean by that? Can you be a little more specific?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if we're caught up in craving, if we're caught up in addiction, which these sad foods, do to our brain, we just constantly are thinking about food, and they occupy our thoughts. So the detachment piece would be, okay, I'm letting go of that. And that's where the carnivore diet really allows your brain to let that go. Now, the Amish man I worked with, he said exactly that. Like, when it comes to prayer now, I mean, I can actually pay attention. I can actually be present. There's something physiological, biological that happens from eating our proper food that impacts our spiritual health. And detachment is that piece. Like, we can detach from our phone. We can detach from all these things we know that are not good for us. But I think food is kind of like this piece we can really have a lot of, control over. Where somewhat like stress and those kind of things, not so much sometimes.
Yeah, in my view, I mean, I view, not the whole foods that I eat, but I mean, a lot of the products that are in the grocery store, and I hesitate to call them food, because I think they act more like a recreational drug for many people, and it really is. I mean, it's almost it is a feeding an addiction. I'll be so bold as to say that this stuff is intentionally addictive. It is not a secret. I mean, and it works well. I mean, you got people that just cannot give up this stuff, and every year there's a new and improved version of it. The new, they just put in different packagings. So it's interesting to see that. All right. Anything else we haven't covered that you want to share that you think is important, worth discussing?
I don't know. I feel like that was really a good conversation with you, Dr. Baker.
Let me just ask one other question then. So,
Okay.
you said your whole family has shifted a little bit in their dietary. How has that impacted you individually and collectively as a family?
Yeah, that's actually the piece that we did miss. Yes, it's been a huge impact. We, even back from, 2016, realizing how beneficial the keto diet was. And then I found fasting and just really started stewarding my health at that point. And we've been able to step away from just modern medical in general. Like we use it now ancestrally, like people would have ancestrally, if there, is a broken arm or an emergency, then okay, we'll go to the urgent care and take care of that need. But we've really stepped away from the norm, I guess, of going to the doctor every year. And yeah, we just We don't need to. It's been such a gift and a blessing to not have appointment after appointment, because I hear people, and like even like mental health, you're going to appointments for that. And it's just, I'm really, really grateful that we're in a good spot with our health.
Yeah, I think, with I think healthcare is something like 20 some percent of our gross domestic product here in the US. It's a multi $5 trillion industry. I don't think we need it as much as we use it. I mean, honestly, I do think the annual physician's appointment in many ways is a waste of time and often counterproductive. And I think a lot of people, if you would just use healthcare as you mentioned, for significant emergency conditions for most things, rather than every time you feel a little under the weather, run to the doctor, and or just routinely go so they can find something wrong with you and treat you with multiple tests and anyway. Well, I'll tell you what. Where do we find that book? Return to Simple, Kim VanDolah.
Yeah.
Where do I find it? Is it on Amazon? Is it on the website? Where do you go?
Yes, it's on Amazon. Absolutely. And you can find me, just if you plug in Return to Simple on Facebook. And my website is also, www.return2simple.com. But yeah, I'm happy to chat with anybody. So that's great.
All right. Well, congratulations on the book. I know it's not a small feat, and I wish you luck. I hope a bunch of people buy it up, and more people homestead, and more people eat normally, or like what I would say normally. I think the modern diet is an eating disorder, quite honestly.
Mhm.
Kim, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. And thank you for everything you do. It's wonderful.